Hey, thanks for making it the Veterans Preference. We are glad you made it. We have a new veteran benefit on the horizon that we wanted to share with you. This could absolutely impact your life. So with that, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. We really appreciate it. Randy, why don't you lead us off with this since you are the one that discovered it? We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for everybody watching this video, D-Day, the anniversary, wasn't too long ago. And on June 6th, Congressman Josh Gottheimer from New Jersey released a plan to assist veterans with jobs. So as you can see on Jason's screen, we've got the presser up. We're going to put a link to it below. This is an official house.gov link. I think there's some real, some real goodness that could come from this legislation, primarily because it's focused around underemployment for veterans. So, we have a tendency as a nation to focus on the unemployment rate, what the statistic is it trending up? Is it trending down? How does that affect me? But underemployment is a real issue for veterans. So part of this legislation's intent is to tackle that. So that's kind of the initial lay of the land. Chris, did you have any opening comments you wanted to share before we start going through the video, or correction, the article?
Yeah, look, I mean, especially over the past couple of years with the economy slowing down, underemployment is something that not just touches veterans, but it really does impact veterans tremendously, especially since it's always hard to get employers to recognize all of the skills and all the things that we bring to the table anyway. So, having conversations, repetition doesn't hurt the prayer. Having conversations about this with so many people transitioning out of active duty and then their families along with them, this idea of underemployment is something that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's probably worth defining before we go any further, what underemployment is. I think we all have our own definition, but in a nutshell, it's just not having enough paid work to make full use of your skills. And I think that really applies to a lot of veterans because we gain a unique skill set while we're in the military that may not necessarily translate word for word or letter for letter into civilian employment. And so we find ourselves doing things that may pay less than we could probably earn otherwise. So that's underemployment for you. Jason, I'll kick it to you to kind of walk us through the article.
Yeah, great. Thanks. But before we jump into it, I did want to throw on a couple things. Even if this does not apply to you, you're retired, you're not working, you have a great job, all of that. Still, watch this because this is information that you could share with other veterans that you may know, come across, family members that are veterans or reservists. And here's the other piece. I'm a big fan of anything positive that's happening for veterans legislatively. Okay. Now, not because it's a good thing for veterans. Obviously, that's it. But I have another reason why. And my other reason why is you have to think about everything that we try to accomplish for veterans and the veteran sphere as a snowball rolling down a hill. And if you're not packing more snow on it, it stays this big, right? So you got to keep packing snow on it to create the momentum, the awareness. The bigger it is, the more that we can get done. We need to stay in the thoughts, the minds, and in the words of these legislators. And everything, whether it's a small win or a big win, is extremely important because the more that we do, the more that we will get. I'll tell you, the veteran population is a shrinking population. That's scary when it comes to legislation in the years to come. So we have to act now and we have to be loud. So with that, that's my little 2 cents on why it's important to continue to watch, support, reach out to your congressional leaders and so forth to let them know that you support this type of stuff. The more voices, the better. You, your spouse, your children who are adults can call your representative. All right, let's jump into this thing, figure out what kind of nuggets we can uncover and how they can impact you or your loved ones. Let's jump into it. This was released, says released on the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And here it's basically the subheadline is urges the DOD and VA to recognize the skills veterans gain while serving, support new legislation that ensures our veterans securely or secure quality jobs after transition to civilian life. And I'll tell you, there has been many people who have transitioned from the military and took 2 or 3 steps backwards. And it's kind of, I think, in my mind, because employers aren't fully aware of the value that we bring to the table. I have worked with many employers, same with Chris and Randy, explaining the value that veterans bring to the table. And in fact, so much so that, you know, you should hire an NCO who got out of the military without a bachelor's degree in X over somebody who has a bachelor's degree but no experience. And here's why. Right. So that's kind of, you know, some of the hidden things that we learn, and the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars that are spent on us. Let's jump into the article today, Thursday, June 6th, 2024. The Congressman Gottheimer. I tried to just push that over to you, Randy, so you could say his name. But here we go. He joined the Fort Lee VFW to announce his new jobs plan for America's veterans. That's important to remember. If you support something like this, you need to reach out to your congressional member and let them know that you support the jobs plan for America's veterans. And this, which will help our nation's heroes secure quality jobs after they transition to civilian life. Now, I'm going to kick it around the table here real quick, just for any quick thoughts before we jump further. The one thing I'm going to just throw in here is, look, we all have different bandwidths and comfort levels. Okay. It's not a scary thing to reach out to your congressional member's office. You can call them and leave them a message after hours that you support the jobs plan for America's veterans. If you'd like, you can email them on their website. You can call them during business hours, speak with the staffer, let them know, they'll jot it down. If you want to be a little more, you know, I guess, engaged, you can swing by the office, go in and tell them that you support this and you want to make sure that the congressional member knows. Or you can even call if you have a very passionate viewpoint. Call, set up an appointment with the congressional member when they're back in the district, and see if you can get 10 minutes of their time to talk about your passionate plea for this type of legislation. With that, I'm going to kick it over to you, Randy, and get your thoughts on just where we're at so far.
Yeah, so let's set aside politics here for a minute. Regardless of your political persuasion, Democrat, Republican, something else, set that aside. This is an elected representative that is stepping up and wants to do something to benefit the veteran community. So, you know, Congressman Gottheimer has some draft legislation. So my understanding of the lay of the land is this is pre-committee. He has not completely gone through the whole legislative authoring process. So to Jason's point, reaching out to your elected representatives and saying, hey, I support the general concept here. They may be a Republican, they may be a Democrat. They're, you know, everybody seems to be happy to jump in and call it bipartisan legislation when veterans are involved. Have them engage with Congressman Gottheimer. Have them tweak the legislation. It's not too early. So Jason's point is well taken. Raising your voice, getting it over to your elected representatives, and then having them get involved in the draft and kind of the melding of the clay for this kind of legislation is really important. And, you know, veteran stuff really isn't as contentious as it you know, could be compared to a lot of other subjects that we have in America. So let's get them to work together. Let's focus on some of our issues that we need to improve as a community. And a big part of this is employment. So that's my thought. And over to you, Chris, for your thoughts.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if like Heimer translates? I assume that Gottheimer is German, but like have hammer. Like, wouldn't that be awesome if that's you know, since this is a jobs bill? But look, squeaky wheel gets the grease. We all know that. You know, hats off to Representative Gottheimer for pushing this forward. We're going to get through the meat of this. You know, but one thing we see real clearly here, and this is a number we see quite a bit, nearly 200,000 service members transition out of the military every year. It seems to fluctuate between 200 and 250,000. and that's been a relatively consistent number, Jason and Randy, that I've seen since I've transitioned, with obvious spikes during, every now and then. Is this a number that just gets thrown out there, or is this is it higher? Is it lower? Is this an average over a period of time? Any knowledge on where this number comes from?
No, I don't.
My guess is that it's my guess here is that it's the processed DD 214s or NGB 22s. At the county veteran service officer level, you actually receive a report with the last home of record based on the service members information. So all that stuff is tracked. I've never seen it at the super high level 200,000 view, but I've seen it drilled down at the myopic level. So, Randy, your thoughts?
Yeah, DOD keeps statistics. Part of it may be coming from the Veteran Affairs side of things. So folks transitioning in, I don't know if it's an output or an input statistic. I think it is reasonably accurate. The number does fluctuate, like you mentioned, but it's a lot of people. And then there are a lot of people that are not necessarily trained for civilian work. Or maybe that's the wrong way to put it, prepared to make that transition.
Well, it would be interesting to see how many family members are attached to those 200,000 as well, right?
You could probably multiply the number by 3 or 4 easily. Yeah. It's a big community.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's jump back into this, and we'll kind of uncover what's going on. So each year, again, 200,000-ish service members transition out of the military. Surveys show that these new veterans struggle with unemployment or underemployment, meaning they cannot find jobs that fully use the skills they've gained in the military. In fact, nearly 1/3 of veteran job seekers are underemployed. And I can absolutely agree with that, which is almost twice as high as the rate for civilians. Gottheimer's jobs plan for America's veterans aims to tackle the underemployment challenge head on. There is nothing more important in this job than my responsibility to always have the backs of those who have stepped up to protect us. After sacrificing so much, our veterans in active duty military should never struggle to get the care, recognition, and respect they have rightfully earned, said Congressman Josh Gottheimer. That's why today I'm excited to announce our new jobs plan for America's veterans. When Jersey veterans come home, and by default, the nation's veterans, it's just Jersey because that's where he's at. After they've fought for our country and accumulated countless skills, there's no reason they should have to fight to get a job. Yeah, that's a great quote. And before we jump into the bullet points here for his jobs plan for America's veterans, before we jump through those bullet points, any thoughts from you, Randy?
Yeah, well, we talked about it at the outset of the video a little bit, but it's this underemployment piece, and it's a translation of skills that service members learn while they're wearing the uniform, and then bringing those to the civilian world. That's where a lot of this gap is, and that gap doesn't necessarily lead to unemployment, because the statistics on that can be kind of all over the map, depending on the month, quarter, year, whatever's going on with the economy and as it relates to veterans. But the underemployment piece is unambiguous. It's continuous, and it's a real issue. So that 1/3 number that they mentioned is huge. It's way too high. And it's a big piece of this is taking the skills that service member learns while on active duty or in the reserves or National Guard, what have you, and translating it to an appropriate place at an appropriate wage in the civilian world. So again, new legislation, new ideas. Some of this has been kind of tossed around before, but anytime somebody's taking an initiative, regardless of their political persuasion, I think we should support it if it helps the veterans community. Chris, what are your thoughts on this chunk of the article?
Yeah, it's about time. Right. I mean, we've been in the helping service members transition business together collectively for more than 100 years. If you add all of our experiences up, well, close to more than 100 years. So, and this is the core issue that veterans struggle with, to be able to talk about how their experience in the military applies to experience in the commercial space. If you break all work that we do down into skills, and you can talk about that skill and the work that you've done based upon the collection of skills, that's not that different than what you do in the civilian world. Now, the industry might be different. The exact piece of machinery that you're working on might be different. But think about the military. We were always trained at the task level. Those tasks broke down into skills. When you got trained on the tasks, then you go through a training exercise, and you're either a go or a no-go at this station, soldier. And then if you went, and then when you went out into the field, you combine those tasks to execute on a mission. Now, if you actually break the work down into subsegments of skills that are in support of getting work done, i.e. a task or an achievement, a work accomplishment, and you could talk about it at that level, and the people that you're talking you're talking with about your experience in the military can understand it at that level, it breaks away all the things that separate military from civilian work, which really isn't that different. It's just the situation that you've applied that work in. And so, again, kudos to Representative Gottheimer, because the whole civilian war right now is kind of all over skills anyway. There's a lot of really incredible movement in this direction. But just like anything else, if the civilian sector breaks stuff in the skills and the military can't talk about it, now we still have that continental divide on explaining the work that we do and how we could make your company successful. And when that doesn't happen, you either get unemployed or underemployed people who are going to come and work hard and do things, and job's a job, and then you work your way up. Yes, but it's just like testing out of a class in college because you took an AP class in high school. Why would you take that class all over again? You wouldn't, right? So this is leveraging a lot of momentum that's happening in the civilian sector. But again, if we don't jump onto it on our side and train our soldiers how to break the work that they do, which is naturally done for us in the military anyway, we just have to understand how to talk about it. Then we're still talking apples and oranges. And so a complementary effort like this for our soldiers and their loved ones is going to be helpful, because again, this is where things are going.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when I look at this, I see three things here, and it's all around that ability to express, right, your abilities and skills is really what it boils down to, right? So you can land the right job. The three things, it's kind of a three-pronged approach in my mind so far, is you need good resources post-transition, right, to get you ready. Then you need post resources and tools that you can utilize, right? So you need both of those things happening. Then the third component is an aware civilian workforce. Just saying, the civilian workforce needs to be aware of what's going on. So for those that can hear, I got chickens, and this is what it sounds like when they get ready to lay eggs. So you'll hear that. It's a party. It's a flock party. All right. So let's run through some of these bullet points here and kind of uncover what's going on to satisfy the needs that are there for our veterans, right? So number one bullet point, a letter to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Dennis McDonough, and Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, urging them to develop a skills-based badging program. Is that what that says?
It does.
Yeah, badging program for competencies that veterans learn while serving, like IT, logistics, and electrical work. So some sort of a badging program. There's a sub bullet here. Employers can look at these badges just like a transcript, and know that veterans are equipped to succeed in a job and start day one. Let's unpack that, Randy.
Yeah. So why is he writing letters to the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of the VA? Well, there is only so much that an elected representative can do to influence or control what these cabinet level entities do, right? On the Congress side, there is some things they can do. They can legislate, but getting legislation done is difficult. It's an uphill, time-consuming battle. We'll talk about that in the next bullet. They provide oversight, so you can be on a committee. But at the end of the day, and they control the purse strings, right? So, but at the end of the day, there's only so much that they can do to influence policy within either the VA or the DOD. So that's why he's writing a letter and urging them to create some sort of a badging program or some sort of a way to recognize the skills and competencies, IT, logistics, electrical, whatever it may be, that these veterans or these service members receive before they become veterans. And I think it's important because, you know, we've talked about this in other videos, but what I think this letter is getting at is the offboarding process. So, you know, you've got all these skills, all these things that you can, you know, do now after years of military training. We need to find a way to present that to civilian employers. And we've talked about this in other videos. You think about all the time, energy, and effort the military takes to recruit you and bring you in. But when they offboard you, it's a much more fragmented and inconsistent process. And so, you know, the first bullet here, we're talking about a letter. It's saying, hey, Secretary McDonough, Secretary Austin, let's take a look at how we are articulating skills for transitioning service members, getting it down on paper, getting it electronic, getting it whatever it may be, this badge, and making that available, putting it as a tool in the newly minted veterans tool chest. So I like it. At the end of the day, there's only so much he can do to move the needle with Secretary Austin and Secretary McDonough. So at least he's doing something by reaching out to them directly. Chris, your thoughts on that first letter, bullet, communication, feedback loop there?
Yeah, and look, I think this is great because it drives a coordinated effort. But you could do all this today. So if you're serving in the military today, there are resources out there. There are company organizations and communities like Vets in Tech, like NPower, like Breakline, and you can just go on and on and on, of made up of veterans or veterans allies who have seen this gap and are out there trying to bridge it. A company called Talent Sky that I'm working with currently that's trying to do this exact thing, trying to help people in industry who are veterans bring veterans up to speed through the power of workshops. So there's a lot of stuff out there. So don't think that we have to rely on legislation to do this. I know that we have, you know, the skills bridge programs. We have trade unions going on to military posts, maybe not yours, but some. So there, and the military offers you education, online education opportunities to go after certificate programs and certification programs, especially around IT. What is it's like there's a specific IT credentialing system that's university, like TIF CREA or something like that. I'll look it up while we're talking. But this is good because it brings organization and it brings leadership oversight. But don't think that you have to wait for Big Brother military or government to legislate the fact that you can do a lot of this already today. There's a lot of really great organizations who have figured this out, and they're giving this mostly for free. And all you have to do is have a level of commitment. And so take advantage of this, whether this comes through or not. But this is obviously a multi-pronged attack that will work in conjunction with certifications and badges, which are a great way of breaking down things, breaking down communications barriers between hiring entities and the folks that are seeking to get hired.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the next bullet here. New legislation is part of the 2025 Veterans Affairs funding package, which expands support in the VA transition assistance program. So this is that pre-discharge process, which is actually super good. I agree with that. It says this legislation provides critical information, resources, and tools to service members and their families to prepare them to move from the military to civilian life, like how to start a small business, how to manage their finances, and how to enroll in higher education. All right, Randy, your thoughts?
So my mind went to kind of a different place as you read through this. It went back into my career a few years before I retired, and I was involved in kind of a military version of emergency management. Got a lot of training in that. And one of the big things that is pushed in emergency management, regardless of what level you're at, be it city, county, state, federal, what have you, is alignment of resources. So, going from the federal level to the state level to the county down to the city, you want all of those resources aligned. You want all of those entities swimming in the same direction to the best you can during a large emergency response. What we do not see, and where I'm going with this, is we don't see that with legislation. So great that this, FY 2025 package, this new legislation that you just talked about, Jason, is coming down the pipe. Hopefully it turns out great for our community, but there are, 50 other states and, DC that could be aligning themselves with legislation that helps at a state level. And, there's larger cities and populated counties that could be aligning themselves with these sort of initiatives. And you might think, well, what are you talking about, Randy? Look at how different veterans benefits are at a state level as you hop between states. Do a quick Google search on it, guys. Check it out. One state might offer a very generous benefit package that's well aligned with some of these more successful federal legislative initiatives, particularly around education. Other states, it's completely absent. And it makes me wonder, is this a budget issue? Is it just the state didn't, figure out how to kind of get this legislation written, maybe by just plagiarizing from one state over? What is the holdup to having a unified and aligned sort of response to this sort of thing? Again, think about emergency management. They want alignment up and down the ladder of government entities. But when it comes to us, the veteran community, that alignment is all sorts of out of whack. So not exactly where I thought where you may have thought I'd go with that, Jason, but it's where my head was. So, Chris, your experience on that.
What was the original question again?
Well, it's to this legislation, right? The second bullet here, he's talking about the things he's doing, which I love, and we could talk about that for a half hour, but there's a gap, and the gap is alignment between state, federal, county, and city resources, because they're not all swimming in the same direction, and that bugs the shit out of me. So that's me.
Yeah. Now, and I asked that because I was digging on what you were saying, but my mind kind of was going a little bit different. I think that's the beauty of all of our different perspectives. That is really true. And this is where you have to be on top of things, because that might influence where you end up when you transition. Like if you're a wise, educated transitioning service member, don't just figure you're going to go back to your home of record and then figure shit out. Right now, you might end up doing that, but why wait? Why not go straight to being educated and seeing? Because look at the trends so here's what I like. I like this because this is somebody that Representative Gottheimer has fought for veterans benefits since he's been in office. This is something that was launched on D-Day, which some might say, well, that you're riding coattails, but you know what? Why not? It's not uncommon for people to launch things on Veterans Day or D-Day, especially when they're related to these types of topics, because it takes advantage of the attention that's being brought to some of the challenges that service members face. I like it because I'm sure New Jersey is going to be one of these 3 states. He's advocating, and guess what? Manufacturing is returning, and it is part of the jobs bills that have been coming in, and part of we got semiconductor plants being built in the U.S. again. So we've realized that all of this outsourcing isn't great for national security. So, and who's best to fit in these jobs that are related to national security and manufacturing? Veterans are. It also is serving very much so the population, the segment of this underemployed groups, which is usually the 18 to 24-year-old enlisted folks. And so you might get some non-commissioned officers in there as well. But this is all goodness. And I love, now it's just 50 million, but I love the fact that they're not trying to boil the ocean here. They're trying to put something in place that's going to demonstrate the value of credentialing, badges, and certifications, getting veterans into programs that marry up and fit nicely. I transitioned into a manufacturing company as well, and it just seemed a lot more comfortable for me when I made that transition because the op tempo was very similar. It gets them into good civilian companies and good jobs, and then they could build their career around that. And so it gets them that first landing point. And so, and it starts small, and we in Silicon Valley love to do that. Find that big, large problem. Here it's underemployment of hundreds of thousands of veterans, and then chunk it off so you could go experiment and understand potential solutions instead of going after $1 billion bill and then have it fall completely on its arse because most of the money is going to oversight and overhead. So this is really, really cool the more I look at it. And yes, if it forces states and it forces multiple layers of government to partner up and be on the same page, that would be a great outcome as well, because we owe it to our veterans to make sure that bureaucracy and interstate and intergovernmental differences don't get in the way of this being something really good, because manufacturing is important to the country and to national security, and our veterans and their loved ones are the best people to do it.
Couldn't agree more. When I transitioned out of the Navy, I landed in the manufacturing world in the U.S. And I'll tell you, it had taken a big hit. Now you can blame that on a lot of different things. There's a lot of different theories. A lot of people blame NAFTA. I won't get political here, but the fact is that manufacturing jobs bled out of this country for far too long. And I like what you said there, Chris. It's a pilot program. Don't boil the ocean. Don't heave $1 billion over the fence and hope, right? That's what we do with tax money when we support, all these conflicts, scattered across the world. We throw money at the problem and hope for a decent result. $50 million, 3 states, fine. Let's see how it does. Let's, have some metrics. Let's see how things turn out. But targeting veterans to these jobs makes a lot of sense because they tend to do well in the manufacturing environment. So I love it. I love when things are built in America. I try to only buy American whenever I can, and I think it's just a good common sense approach. So, Jason, back up to you. We kind of went through this bullet here, so
yeah. So I dropped off. So no, absolutely. And I think that look, every piece of legislation is going to have things that maybe you wish it was a little meatier here, or maybe it's good there. Maybe I like this piece, but not that piece. And that's just the way that it works, especially when you get multiple hands in the pot and you need to get it over the finish line. There's a lot of compromises along the way. So you have to look at what's good in it. I think there's some good intent, and I think that it looks like there is some good possibilities, especially with that pilot program, focusing in on 3 states, see how they do, open it up from there. The TAP program aspect, investing a little more in that. I hope that they dive in a little deeper and make that TAP program a little more beneficial than it currently is. Even Stan agrees, my rooster. So with that, we wanted to just bring this to everyone's attention so they're aware of what's out there. Don't forget that if this is something that you support, let your legislators know, let your congressional member know that you support Gottheimer's jobs plan for America's veterans. And that way, that will give them the opportunity to work with him to develop it further, become a co-sponsor and so forth, and hopefully kick it over the finish line. With that, thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate you. Have a great one, and we'll see you next time. That's awesome.